So thank you everyone for joining. Please do use the chat box. As I mentioned, I wanted to do this short webinar today because a lot of our clients have been asking us about AI related to thought leadership, marketing, content creation, what they should do, what they should use, what they should be aware of. The ethics of AI is a completely new field. It's something that's really been evolving over the past year and a half since ChatGPT really made a splash about a year and a half ago. So the point of this webinar is really to inform we'll be going through different layers related to authenticity of voice, AI and misinformation, and other, failures, risks, other things that you should be aware of. This is great information for you to consider as a CEO, founder, executive on LinkedIn with your executive presence, or also if you're on the marketing team, a comms team, working with people, advising people in your company. It's also a great way to stay, updated on what you should be aware of before implementing any tools. So let's get started. I really wanted to start this conversation about
Sorry,
authentic.
Kimberly,
Oh,
can you click on the rectangle because it's in the middle of the screen so everybody can read what you're explaining, please.
oh, okay. Hold on a second. Sorry.
Okay.
So which rectangle do I have to click? Oops, not that one.
Try to minimize like all the participants because it's in the middle of the screen.
Oh, okay. You're seeing that. Sorry about that. Okay, let me minimize that. Oops. I don't know why it's being a little bit glitchy. Sorry, everyone. Thank you for bearing with us during these few technical difficulties. Let me see. I cannot seem to figure out. Oh, that one. Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. It's better now, correct?
Yeah.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. And if anyone doesn't see anything or if we have another little issue, just let me know. But first webinar we've done in 4 years, so thank you for bearing with us. Authenticity of voice. I wanted to start with this point because it's something really, really big related to ethics. So here's an example on the right of Brad Smith. Brad Smith is a great thought leader. If you don't follow him already, I recommend you following him. He's the president of Microsoft. He's a great tech thought leader. And as you can see from this post, it's short, but it's very clear that it was not written with AI. How can we tell that? It's because he has a very authentic tone. You can tell from his posts what his tone is. They're usually short, easy to read. His tone is very personable. It's professional, but it's not too overly wordy. So this, is a post that we can definitely tell has not been written with AI. What is the problem of using AI to write in your voice? The problem is that there is a loss of authenticity because as we've seen recently is that it's just AI is not really great at replicating someone's voice. And we're actually seeing a lot of content right now that it's clear when it's written with AI just because the tone is always kind of the same, even if you're trying to get it to write different ways. Some of the reasons that the authentic voice does not appear is because of hallucinations with AI, so it does hallucinate. There's been a lot of cases with that recently where it just makes up things. Also, there's too much information overload, so it leads to consistency issues. And it's really just important to understand that this can really have ethical implications because you as a CEO or a founder or working on the marketing team, comms teams for these individuals, people want to know that who is writing online, they want to think that that is Brad Smith. It's okay that maybe somebody's helping him with his content, but people do not want to think that that is not Brad Smith. So That's really important to maintain the human touch and to maintain that authenticity, which we just have seen is not able to, AI is not able to replicate that yet. It's really, really important to not allow AI to write everything for you and to really lean into AI being a complement, but not writing things for you from scratch. So the next issue related to AI and misinformation are, it could even be a legal liability. So it's really an ethical concern that needs to be considered. What I wanted to include here is one example that recently has been in the news, and it's about a researcher from South Africa who talks about how when you look at AI, it looks like what is known about Africa in general is really little, and what is thought about Africa is very different than what people living, her example was South Africa, but her example was people living in South Africa, what the world thinks about them from, what can even be asked on AI is very different than the reality. And this happens because of the aggregation of information from AI and, who is that information being written by. Sometimes, a lot of the time in the case that this researcher showed was that since so many articles or research papers are often written about regions in Africa by people who are not from there, there's a lot of, misconceptions, and just, the image is not exactly the same. So this can actually lead to reputation damage or legal liabilities if you are using AI to, help you write something about a certain region, and, it's just not intelligent enough to understand where it's getting that information from. It may be written from a different point of view. This is something I definitely recommend keeping in mind if you are part of a company that has many offices in different parts of the world, because as we've seen is that, even though you may have those local entities, there's also usually those offices where all of the communications or the marketing comes out of. And if that's the case, make sure whatever information you are getting, there's many data validation layers. It's not just coming from AI, because there could be misinformation there. And always look for local subject matter experts. That's really, really important. And this is just, even going a little bit further into that. Ethical considerations are that to consider is that AI is not truly intelligent. This is what we've been seeing as we've been testing it for a lot of our clients. So what does that mean? As it's aggregating information, that doesn't mean that it actually knows the truth of a lot of these things. There could be misinformation, as with the previous example. And also there could be a lack of representation. So often it is better to, even if you're using AI for ideation or to look for fact checking, always also look for those subject matter experts. On the left, this is just an example of a deep fake. Why I wanted to share this is you'd actually be surprised, but a lot of leaders have already gotten into a little bit of a conundrum because there have been cases of people sharing things that actually were fake, and they didn't know that what they were sharing was fake online. So what to do in this case? I definitely recommend knowing where any images you're posting are coming from, making sure that they are real. You can do that by purchasing them. You can use a site like Getty, for example, if you're purchasing images, or other sites that, show you where things are coming from. But it's really important right now to be even more careful than before, because there have been a lot of these cases of misinformation. And, it's really an ethical thing to consider, especially if you're putting out an opinion piece or a thought piece, and, some of the information you're not really sure 100% of the source. So use AI critically, but beware of some of these limitations. And I'd love to know, has anyone seen or had any of these issues so far as you've been testing out AI? Feel free to, write in the comments and let us know. And moving a bit to AI manipulation. AI, one thing that we have to be extremely aware of, especially ethically, as we continue to move forward with using more and more AI, is how AI can be manipulated. It can be manipulated actually through information aggregation. So, for example, if a certain country, if a certain government, if a certain corporation was, very, very inclined to have a certain narrative of something move forward. Let's just use, a random example that isn't true, but say that there was something with a big pharma corporation and they didn't want something about their medicine to be known. If they technically wanted to spend the time, resources, and money to populate into the internet 1 million pieces of content saying that, that medicine is actually good or bad or whatever it may be, AI would actually start to aggregate that information and could start to lie just from the volume of the misinformation campaign. This is something to really be aware of, especially when sharing information, when working on thought leadership content, because in the future, we may even be, Googling such simple things that are not actually, so that we think are obvious and true, but actually because of misinformation may not be true. On the left, this was just, a simple example of the Pope. An image went viral where he was supposed to be giving a speech in Lisbon, excuse me, but actually he was not. So we can all be tricked with this. And as there is more aggregated information, as there's more volume, things can be manipulated. So again, the easiest way around this is there may be more cases in the future, but always making sure you do have those subject matter experts on your team to check any content you're producing is really, really important. And to be aware of any potential, especially if you're, talking about certain issues that may be a little bit more controversial or a little bit more touchy, even be more careful with this. And the next thing we're going to talk about is hiring affected by AI. So, definitely this is not a webinar against AI at all. We're in my agency, we're using AI ourselves on a daily basis. So that's not at all the point. But, as leaders in your companies and respective fields, it's really important to think about all of the pros and cons related to any technology you're using. So right now, we're seeing AI is having incredible productivity advantages for us. It also will come at a human cost. There will be more, of course, we will probably see reduced workforces. So this was just an example that in the future, a larger corporation with a large marketing department may be reducing those employees by, 2/3 because there is so much productivity. However, I encourage you as leaders to think about, and I'd love to hear in the comments if you'd like to share anything, where do you fall? Productivity versus some of the human effects. We have, two sides of the coin. Definitely great to see all of this productivity. Also, where do you stand? It would be good to understand and think about where do you stand?
Kimberly,
Oh, sure.
sorry,
Angel.
sorry to interrupt you. We have a few comments.
Oh,
We
great.
have Sunil that he's saying about large language models that they also have inherent bias. For example, American language models, I mean Chinese, Islamic, they are giving different outcomes. And also we have Eva, I think I said the right name. She cannot believe that this information, I mean, for example, that AI doesn't give right information, I mean, she found some errors and made up informations, I mean, hallucinations. Whenever I've been asked to use it as at work, I mean, she's giving her point. Also, we have Pramila, recently a big hallucination that went viral, and he shared a link.
Oh, yes, definitely. So that's a great link to see, and I look forward to looking at it as well afterwards. And thank you all for your comments. Definitely true. It's very surprising that these models can lie and the inherent bias. That's something we're also seeing. So thank you so much for sharing those. And yeah, please keep your comments coming. related to hiring and productivity. You know, I'd love to hear what you all think about this. Again, this is not to tell or to suggest that it's wrong to use AI. It's not to suggest that you have to, you know, maintain many, many people on your team. Neither one is right or wrong. It's just it's good. It's a good time to think about where you stand and, you know, where you would like to draw the line with how much AI you are using. And I'd love to hear, you know, what do you all think about workforce automation and how do you think it will impact your community, marketing efforts in your company? Do you, you know, or does anyone have any opinions on the long-term consequences for society? I'd love to, you know, hear a little bit about what everybody's thinking.
Okay, we have Emily. She's saying, I think it's important to not say that AI can lie because lying suggests agency.
Yes. Oh, great point. Yes. Thank you for that. And very, very, very important. Yes. Totally agree. Great, great nuance there. Thank you for that. Great. So if any other comments come, feel free, Angel, to read them. And yeah, thinking about the hiring, this was a great example recently because, you know, we see all sides of the coin. You know, we ourselves are looking AI, how to become more productive and how to become more effective in everything we do. We're seeing that with a lot of our clients. There's also many companies, for example, this went viral. The CEO of Procreate explained, which is a very artistic type of application, that they don't want to integrate any AI tools and that they're really committed to preserving human creativity and talent. And this statement really went viral because it, you know, it's pushing things completely the other way against AI. This was really interesting, something I wanted to share as food for thought. This was a recent essay in the New Yorker about why AI is not going to make art. I recommend you read it. It's just about the creativity of the human mind and how we really need to embrace that. And this was one of the things from that piece where, you know, it talks about one of the key points was that AI can be a dehumanizing. Let me try. I think someone is unmuted. Let me, if you can all, yeah, actually, let me just go in and mute whoever is unmuted. Sorry about that. Okay, sorry about that. And yes, we're back now. Do you see my screen, Angel, or do I have to reshare?
You have to reshare.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. So this was one of the key points from that essay where it talks about how this can be a dehumanizing technology because it treats us as less than what we are. So I personally do not 100% agree with this, but I did want to show it to you just to see, to, you know, make you think about what some of the other sides of the coin with AI are right now. There is a pretty big while there is a huge usage of AI, there is also a counter, you know, cons against AI. So just something good to think about. And next, taking us to copyright infringement. So if you are going to take anything from this talk today, I'd love for you to take this slide alone. It's what I consider one of the most important things related to ethics and also related to reputation management of your firm or yourself as a personal brand. There has been, you know, a huge uptick in copyright. The legislation is not really clear yet where it's going to stand related to AI. For example, judges in key jurisdictions are still shaping what is legal and what isn't, but we do know that you know, publications such as the Chicago Tribune sued OpenAI for copyright infringement. You can just think about if articles are, if AI is taking information from an article, for example, that usually was behind a paywall, that could be a huge issue, or it also happens with creative content as well. So why am I sharing this? I would like to encourage you to err on the side of caution if you're creating anything, especially if you're writing something like an op-ed or even a LinkedIn post. We are seeing a big uptick in copyright infringement, and we don't want, you want to protect your brand and yourself. So err on the side of caution. This also goes with images. We are seeing even, anyone who is high profile or is an up and coming thought leader, there are now more firms who are even just looking for copyright infringements on a daily basis because there are so many related to AI. So for example, we've seen cases of high profile leaders getting into trouble because they shared an image that they didn't know was copywritten, and then it had the copyright, and a firm went after them just for that reason. So keep this in mind, and really try to see whatever you are working on, try to make it as original as possible, or, don't use, I also with imagery, you can use imagery from AI, but again, err on the side of caution, and really try to understand where what you're using has come from. That's really, really important. And, with AI generated images, one of the things I would be curious if any of you already saw this. This was online a few weeks ago. These images are all 100% AI generated. And, they show females speaking at conferences. This, went really viral online about, is this ethical? Should we be using images like this? This can be a really big, conversation alone if in your marketing campaigns or on your thought leadership campaigns, should you be using images that are completely AI generated? I do not have the answer, should you or not, should you? What I will say is that definitely keep in mind the biases that AI can create. So there was a large, backlash because these women are all young and, and beautiful. So could that potentially perpetuate certain gender biases? Maybe it could. My recommendation would be think about if you do need to use an AI generated image or not in the campaign or on the profile you're using. And if you do decide to use one, be transparent and label that it's been AI generated. I think that's, whether it's right or wrong to use them, I can't say, but it's good to label and be really transparent about that. Transparency is really key. Related to reputation damage, Under Armour actually did face backlash for an AI generated ad that didn't credit the original content creator. So it just does go back to those copyrights and being aware of that, because this can also happen on a personal level. If you're a CEO or if you're helping the CEO on your team write something, and then, for example, part of it's created with AI, it's not credited, that can also lead to reputation damage. What I found really interesting, again, going with the previous example of a recommendation to label, is Cannes Lion, the famous festival that's every year in France related to, advertising, actually wants everyone to label the AI disclaimers now to establish when they have used AI. So I think it's all about, being really transparent and also making sure to always incorporate human oversight. Where we are right now and where we predict we're going to be for the next, 3 to 5 years is using these tools, but with a really strong human oversight. The word that was used earlier about agency, that's really important. We humans, we do have agency, so overseeing them, super important, and not letting AI take control of everything. And one of the last things for this presentation I wanted to share, just to help you, be aware of, is digital legacy. So it's a completely new thing to think about, but as, business leaders, you probably think of other things after, you met in the future. And related to content after death, how do you want your digital legacy to be? This is something that's also really important to already start to take in mind. So if you're ever doing any estate planning, also considering, what do you want your digital legacy to be? Do you want, do you want AI or other platforms online to have access to your content? Do you want them to use your voice? Do you not? Good things to think about. It's a completely new thing, but something important to think about. So great. I that was really covered everything related to ethics with this presentation. As we are a thought leadership agency, I did want to show we have a whole presentation on AI tools that if anyone attending now would like, just send me an email and I would be happy to send you that entire presentation. Here are 3 tools that we have tested and we recommend, without any ethical or reputation damage. You won't have those risks with these tools. They're high quality and they help produce great content. The first is Crea, which is an image generation tool generator. Veed in the middle can do user-friendly video editing, which is really important. So a great way to speed up productivity and a great way to, help your videos be even more user-friendly. Also, a great feature on Veed is actually you can clone your voice. So that's a whole other ethical thing to think about. But I think if you are cloning your voice in a way with something that, for example, if you wanted to do a video on LinkedIn and you wanted to say something that you would say, but you just want, to either speed up the process or sometimes you have trouble speaking. If you wanted to clone your voice, you could try with Veed. It is a cool tool, I have to say. And if all you have to do is record yourself saying something and update that paragraph in your tone, and then it will create something else. It's actually really crazy. I'm sure you've seen other content online about, what can be created with in people's voices, but it is really, really impressive. If you're using it yourself, I think it's okay. But if you're using someone else's, that's when I would say it's not ethical. But if you yourself are saying, I'm going to create something in my voice, I think that's okay. And then CapCut is also a great tool for editing. So most of these tools are more on the creative side, image generation, video generation. I'm sure you all know about the writing tools like ChatGPT, but we went through some of the ways it can be used, but also the ethical concerns with that earlier. And yeah, just a few AI updates on LinkedIn. If you do want to use AI, you should use AI. We all are using it. So that's, the point. It's just to use it in a very conscious way. Some ways that I do see really effective are comment suggestions. So one thing to note with this, a lot of CEOs or founders or executives have been tempted to not to use tools to comment for them. I 100% do not recommend doing that because again, it brings us back to what we were saying with the Brad Smith example. So Brad Smith is an amazing thought leader, and when we read his content online, we want to believe that it's written by Brad. He believes it, he agrees with it, and it's all Brad. So if you're using a tool to comment, that can dilute your credibility online, and that can also harm your reputation if later on by accident the tool comments on something you don't agree with. So I 100% do not recommend using any third-party tools that offer community management because they lack that accuracy and personal touch. So it won't be authentic, and you can also make a really big error that could go viral in a bad way. However, comment suggestions are great. They're a great way to just click on LinkedIn and, start what you want to write and write a little bit more. So I do recommend using comment suggestions. I also do recommend using collaborative articles. You've probably seen on your LinkedIns as you are thought leaders attending today, that they're often LinkedIn is asking you, can you contribute to this article? Or if you're managing, someone on your team, their profile may be asking them, definitely contribute to those articles. It's super, super important. That not only helps your LinkedIn profile rank higher, but that's, creating more content for LinkedIn. You can get community badge and you can actually increase your views. So these are some AI updates that are good to keep in mind and good to use. There's also a simple designer for example, if you don't want to include a graphic designer on your team to create you something, you can create, for example, a simple image for an article or for a post, and then that's not going to give you any copyright concerns because that's already being produced in LinkedIn. And lastly, content credentials feature. So this was mentioned earlier, but it goes across all platforms. If you are using AI generated visual content, please label it as AI generated. That's really, really important because now LinkedIn is starting to label things in their feed. Angel, did we have any comments or questions up to now that we should go through?
Well, Carriage is, I mean, she did a comment about, if we are going to share the AI tools presentation,
Yes,
and I
definitely.
mentioned that we are going to do it, and then Mark, add me to deck distribution. That's the only comment that we have right now.
Okay, great. So yeah, to wrap up, what are our recommendations? Use AI, think about it ethically, think about some of the things we spoke about today, such as monitoring, oversight of the tool. Also, make sure if you do have a large public presence to have a crisis management strategy in place if you were using anything that's not produced by yourself. Invest in a little bit of AI literacy and media training. So this is something that you can do with your comms teams, your marketing teams, and try to overall maintain that authenticity. Right now, what we're seeing online, because of AI, there's so much content being produced right now, more than ever before. The problem is that it's not always content that is worth being reading. For example, compared to years ago, we have so many more ebooks, posts on LinkedIn, anything than we did before. What is really important is to stay authentic, because otherwise your content may just go into the sea of other content that isn't read. So maintain that authenticity, label, be transparent, and proceed with caution. And great, yeah, that's
Sorry,
any,
Kimberly.
go ahead.
Gianmarco, Daniel added a comment about an interesting perspective, a bit pessimistic about AI and productivity, and shared a link. Okay.
Oh, great. Thank you. Okay, perfect. And we can share those with everyone afterwards. So did anyone have any other questions? I'm going to end with, I really hope this was a great, I hope that you found value out of this. I hope you found something useful. I will love to tell you all about us for the next 2-3 minutes before we wrap up, but any questions specifically related to ethics of AI, or if anyone doesn't want to ask while everyone's in the room, I'm also happy to stay on a few minutes extra, and anyone who wants to ask can ask then. But feel free to write anything else in the chat box if you had any questions about anything we reviewed today. So great. Yeah, 2 minutes I thought would be great to, most of you or some of you already know who we are, but tell you a little bit about us. We are the KA Consulting Group. We have a boutique agency. I'm the founder. What do we do? We work with CEOs, founders, C-suite executives, and their marketing teams to help people become the top thought leaders in their fields. How do we do this? We help them make incredible LinkedIn presences. We help them with their reputation management, with their online content, their op-eds, their Forbes. And we work with a variety of industries. So basically you can think of us as the office of the CEO. We do anything that would come out of the office of the CEO from a comms perspective, we do that. So we do internal and external communications. We help create amazing LinkedIn profiles that cut through the noise. We help with any type of, strategies. A lot of our clients are in diverse fields. We also help with, people who don't maybe want to work with us long term, but do want a strategy, people who are changing roles.
Sorry,
So,
Kimberly. We have a few comments. We
oh,
have
great.
Heather. She says, this was very interesting. I did notice everyone starting to use AI sounding post and lacks the human touch. And also we have Tikhonov. How do you use AI in your work?
Yes. Oh, great question. So we use AI as a complement. So for example, Angel here on our team is the art director, and we use these tools, for example, to edit videos, to help create creative content, but we use it as a complement. So we don't use it as the base. We usually do a mix of something maybe created with AI, but it's also generated by a human. We do the same with ideation. Sometimes if we're working with a new client who, wants us to come up with 10 ideas for op-eds, maybe we'll start by asking a few AI platforms what they think. And then, maybe 10 of those ideas don't work, but maybe 2 of the ideas they gave us are a good starting board for more, human brainstorming. So we use the tools right now as a complement. All of these tools we are using, for example, on this slide. We also do use it, with writing. We do look at, we don't write right now with AI, but sometimes we do, ask AI for different ideas on how to promote a certain topic or something like that. So it's being used currently as a tool to help us. That's how I would describe it. Did we have any other questions, Angel, before I wrap up?
Not right now. Oh, sorry. Yeah, came in a few. Samantha, hi Kimberly. What are the key things to keep in mind if you want to hire consultants or agency with your top leadership?
Oh, great question. Okay, thank you for that question. I would say if you are going to hire someone to help you with your marketing or thought leadership, you definitely need to remember that you should, as the CEO or founder, should be involved in the process. So you don't want to hand everything over to someone else. You want to stay involved, and you want to make sure that my biggest recommendation would be to make sure they understand what your goals are and also understand what they're doing. Because right now what we're seeing is our agency, for example, we are a boutique agency. We work with, very specific CEOs, founders, executive suites, but we are seeing some agencies who work with, 500 clients across the board. And what happens if you work with someone like that is that the service will not be specialized, and they may be repeating what they do with you with the next person. It may not be custom, and that's a problem because to stand out, you need the Brad Smith approach. With the Brad Smith approach at the beginning of the presentation is a person who is invested in his content, has a great team. I'm sure everything he posts has a unique perspective. What you don't want is a cookie cutter just posting on LinkedIn approach. So I would, before you work with someone, I would ask them a lot of questions about what's their process, what tools do they use, and how can they make sure that you are a customized client, because you want them to be an extension of your team.
Okay, we have another question. Well, Craig mentioned good example of exposure when using AI external. Can you compare with potential exposure when using AI internally with an organization?
Yes, so using AI internally, is your question how to use AI internally? Is that what I understood?
Let's see if Craig can reply on the chat and we can help him.
So I think if that was the question, I would say that you can use.
Yes, potential legal exposure.
Oh, potential legal exposure. So if you're using it internally, there's probably less risk because you're not putting something into the market related to copyrights. But I would say, just going back to this copyright slide, internally, I don't think you need to be as careful. If you're just, for example, making some sort of newsletter to send out to your entire team and you ask some tool to create you a quick image. I don't think you need to be as careful with it as you would with something that's going external. However, you could apply the same principles, but I think you can, the vigilance can be, I would say, like one step down of, what could potentially be a copyright issue or a legal issue. Internally, if you can use AI in many different ways, of course. Now there's even ways to write with AI emails or shorten emails. That's a great tool internally, is the email shortener that just makes things really easy to read. So there's great ways to use it that way. I would say also, though, if you are a CEO, for example, doing an internal memo, you still want that to be written by the CEO because it's the same principle of, just going back again. I know I spoke about Brad Smith a lot. There's a million great thought leaders out there, but going back to the Brad Smith example, Brad Smith is, if we were seeing an internal memo from him, we would want it to have the same tone as his LinkedIn voice. We would want his audience or his internal stakeholders to understand him. So that would be really important to use it as a compliment, but not use it, don't go from not writing with AI on your LinkedIn, but then the CEO writes with AI internally. We would want there to be a match, internal, external communications to still have some sort of match.
Okay, we have another question from Lucho. What's the best practice to avoid corporate confidential information being shared in certain AI tools? Some of them are public or not, but they are, at the end of the day, data machines.
Yes, that is true. That one is a great question that I don't 100% have the answer to because I have read myself that that is a huge issue. I would avoid what I have read. It's definitely not my specialty. However, what I have read is that anything confidential, you don't want to ask AI. For example, if you were looking to like rewrite something, a press release, probably you don't want to put that into AI because maybe we don't know how that information is being used. And maybe there is a way that it could come out earlier than you want it to, So anything confidential, I would definitely be very careful not to ask ChatGPT or any other model to do something with that information. And if anyone here that works for, a very large organization, if you have any insight that you'd like to share with us, that would be really interesting to hear, actually.